From the far reaches of the Milky Way galaxy, it's Retro Nerd Girl with a film review for you. Today, I'll be reviewing the movie The Faculty, released in 1998. Starring Josh Hartnett, Elijah Wood, and Robert Patrick. Directed by Robert Rodriguez. The synopsis is: alien parasites take over the bodies of the faculty at Harrington High School in Ohio as an unlikely group of students try to escape. The story, originally titled The Feelers, David Wetcher and Bruce Kimmel wrote their first draft of the script in 1990. After the success of Scream in 1996 and Scream 2 in 1997, Hollywood saw how lucrative character-driven teen horror movies could be. I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, and Disturbing Behavior are just a few. Teen horror was so hot that Miramax bought Wetcher and Kimmel's script and rushed it into production immediately, hiring Robert Rodriguez to direct. Kevin Williamson rewrote the script, keeping the basic story, adding dialogue and more characters to make it palatable for teen audiences. The foundation of the story is based on The Breakfast Club, where we have the rude, rebellious boy, the gothic, heavy eyeliner wearing chick, the snarky, popular girl, the confused jock, and the puny nerd. They updated the group by adding the dynamic of the plucky but shy new girl in town desperate to make new friends. I think that this is a pretty good formula and the most grounded part of the story, even though the characters may be vastly stereotypical. Anyone in the audience can identify with at least one of those characters. The tale is simple, lacking a whole lot of depth about the backstories and explanations for many of the events that occur. Yet it still manages to keep the viewer's attention by spending a great deal of time getting to know these characters, mainly how they behave, and they do this while unpeeling the plot slowly. The film's dialogue was written with a wicked humor and a witty banter. An example of that is when Professor Furlong is being turned down by Nurse Rosa. He says, "Maybe I should just put a pen in my eye," pretty much foreshadowing the method of his own demise later in the film. Besides that, there's a great buildup of mystery behind the strange events that are happening in the school. In fact, we are not sure that this is even an alien takeover until the very big reveal at the end. The pacing. At an hour and 44 minutes, the pacing is pretty good. I don't think I was ever bored while watching this film. The challenge. The challenge in this story is the invasion of the water alien parasites on Earth being controlled by a queen. For whatever reason, the alien queen decides to start off her invasion at a small high school in Ohio, of all places. One of the protagonists hypothesized that this might have been the way that the aliens could use the back door to invade Earth instead of going for a more bolder approach. Now, the alien queen infects the faculty at the school with her spawn of replicating alien parasites. They would then spread out to the families and eventually take over the entire town. And in one scene, they go as far as having the students write down all of the members of their families. And this is in the guise of a history assignment in order for the aliens to know who to target next. I absolutely thought that was so brilliant, and there were so many brilliant touches in this story, and for me that was one of them. Another touch that I really enjoyed was that they used the guise of a football game in order to lure in people from other schools and infect them and send them out into the world. And I love that. I love that idea of using the football game in that way. Coach Willis is the first victim in the story, and it's through him that the film initially demonstrates the transformation the humans undertake while being infected. Originally, we see that the coach has a serious anger problem and is completely out of control. He's really a pretty nasty character. And after he's infected, he actually is very calm. And to the point that when his star quarterback quits football, he actually just smiles and say, "What kind of human being would I be if I didn't allow you to explore your options in life?" And it was really kind of like odd, because we basically saw him a few scenes early completely freak out on his football team. So these alien parasites are able to control emotions or keep them at bay. Principal Valerie Drake is actually the next main faculty member that you should really know about in the story, because she's pretty highly revered as the authority at the school. She isn't a mean character before she becomes infected, but people really don't like her because she has to stick by the rules, and she's kind of trapped in this situation where she has to give all of the school's resources to the football team instead of academic programs and projects. It's kind of a tough burden for her. She doesn't like it. She's angry about it. And you really get all of this information about her character by spending just a few minutes with her in the film. I'm kind of running down all of this for you because this is an example of how excellent the storytelling is. They give you a few moments and you know all of this information about this character, which I think is another brilliant piece to the film. That's why I guess I don't know if you know this already, but I absolutely love this film. In the beginning of the film, the means to which this character is infected is pretty violent, with the assailants, Coach Joe and Mrs. Olsen, both dryly saying that they've always wanted to hurt her. And this subtly reveals that even though that they're a part of this hive, they actually are retaining some of themselves, some of their memories and emotions. Another interesting thing about these characters, Principal Drake, Mrs. Karen Olsen, the drama teacher, and the English teacher, Mrs. Burke, all undergo a makeover. And it's almost as if these characters are now able to live out their subdued desires. The film really spends a lot of time showing you these little details in the transformations, and this is just a lot of fun to watch these actors play with their characters flourishing on screen. Now, the main baddie in the film, which is the real challenge, is in disguise as the very mild-mannered new girl from Atlanta, Mary Beth Louise Hutchinson, complete with a very charming Southern accent. She's so sweet and adorable, with a quirky sense of humor to boot. Now, she sets her sights on Zeke and Stokely. These guys are the two most rebellious teens at the school, and it's almost as if she can sense their human emotions, the way she kind of stalks them in the sweetest way possible until they finally give in to her quiet, observing presence. You know, she's amused by them. She kind of taunts them a little, studying their weaknesses and establishing their trust. You know, she's like a cat playing with a toy. Perhaps this is because she finds them to be a fun challenge, at least temporarily, because she is really powerful enough to easily destroy them. She is super, super powerful. She has the opportunity to do it so many times in the film, and she doesn't. And that is because she's playing with them. She's enjoying the invasion. And the beauty of her character is that she isn't an obvious tip-off to the audience at any point until she actually reveals it. On multiple viewings, you know why she does what she does as a character. It all makes sense. We are left to read between the lines, such as when Mary Beth and Delilah face off during a test to see which of them is infected. Mary Beth raises a brow. The brow initially looks like a dare, but after the second viewing, it almost looks as if she's giving a command. And it's interesting to see on multiple viewings how the aliens are always one step ahead of our heroes. And that is because Mary Beth is staying close to the group and sabotaging their plans. You know, I can't tell you how much I love this villain. She's so smart, she's underestimated, and very, very threatening. I absolutely love her. Empathy. The film starts out focusing on Zeke, the ridiculously smart and charming loner bad boy doing his senior year over again. Why? It's interesting to him. For extra money and a little fun, he sells his own concocted drug called scat, comprised of caffeine, aspirin, and other household ingredients from the trunk of his 1970 Pontiac GTO. It's a beautiful car. I have to confess, I do love cars. His drug is really important to the plot because it is actually a toxin to the aliens and it dries them out. I noticed how immediately when Mary Beth sees the pen vials of the drugs, she really amps up her flirting. And, you know, the first time you see it, it just looks like she's interested in the bad boy, you know, but she is targeting Zeke. Stokely is a heterosexual girl pretending to be a lesbian to scare off people. She is established as the science fiction enthusiast who may have some insight into what's going on, and is the first person to really notice that something strange is going on in the school. Delilah is quite interesting to me, very unlikable character. She's really too smart, in my opinion, to be as shallow as she is. And it almost appears as if by the end, she's actually had a character arc by actually falling for the nerd by the end of the film. But actually, she hasn't changed at all because that nerd has become the popular boy who is now nationally praised. Casey's absolutely insane for her. He has such a big crush on her. Casey is a good kid who makes all A's, but I don't know how he does because he gets utterly demolished at school every day. I mean, everybody's just like beating him up, punching him, and throwing him down and annihilating the poor child every single day. I can totally identify with that because I was bullied as a kid. But I think Casey has it a lot worse than I did. He has to eat lunch in the bleachers of the football field in order to get any kind of peace of mind. Poor Casey can't even get a break even when he goes home because his parents are so uptight that they don't even trust him. Casey is the conduit for the audience to question what it sees. There are two instances of this. When the police question Casey about what he saw, and when the group of students confront the principal who they believe is the alien queen. He's not sure about what's real, and the audience isn't either. But his uncertainty really throws a wrench in our belief system. The film spends so much time building up Zeke as the possible hero of the story in the beginning, but ultimately it's Casey who is the hero. He outruns and outsmarts the alien to become the film's ultimate hero, and I just love that. Although it takes 55 minutes into the film before all the students get together as a team, I call them the dream team, the energy really goes into overdrive after that. So it's so much fun to watch this part. Is it just like, gets crazier and crazier as the film goes on. Now, the technical aspects. The film was directed by Robert Rodriguez, but this is unlike any film that he's ever done, at least style-wise. However, you can feel his influence in the cinematic creativity. When Mary Beth changes from a monster to a girl in the pool, it's all done with shadows underwater, and I thought that that was a very wonderful effect, and the way it's so creepy and terrifying. I can't tell you how much I love the creative shadowing when Mary Beth walks around in her human form while her writhing shadow is of the monster. I thought that was not only just creative, but actually beautiful. I like things like that. I don't know why. It was very creepy too. It's just like, wow, you see the potential of who she really is in the shadows, and that she's suppressing it by being this human being, this form. I love that. The camera movement, okay, the angles that the film was shot, just many different incredible zooms. I thought that they were very creative and just gorgeous, simply amazing, that kind of stuff. There are many unconventional moments driving home that very uneasy feeling that's truly needed in a horror film. The details in a lot of the sets were really incredible. It just felt very real and lived in. Let's talk about the CGI. There was a lot of CGI used in this film, and some of it just does not hold up with age. However, there were a lot of scenes that did work for me, and especially I thought the practical effects were awesome. The practical monster effect was excellent. The score is composed by Marco Beltrami, who had previously scored Scream in 1996, and the soundtrack was filled with lots of youthful, rebellious rock to drive home the 90s teen angst stamp that it had. Now, the performances. The performances were pretty awesome, and the cast is just full of people who went on to become big names in Hollywood. We have Josh Hartnett as Zeke, and he was fantastic. Elijah Wood, who was great as Casey Connor. And, in this film, you see how much he acts a lot with his eyes. It really sells his character's innocence and wonder about what's going on. I think that's kind of his secret weapon. We have Robert Patrick playing Coach Willis excellently and really hamming it up for the camera. But that's what his character was all about, go big or go home. And he just pulls it off so well with so much bravado. I loved it. I mean, him in this role just seemed to really, was like, ooh, he's good. Jordana Brewster was really good as Delilah Prophet. I may not have liked the character, but I thought she was superb. Clea Duvall as Stokely was really perfect, in my opinion. She was such an interesting character, and she's really, at this point, at this time in her career, she was doing a lot of roles, a lot like this, that were very complex and dark and mysterious. And, she killed it. Laura Harris as Mary Beth Louise Hutchinson was thoroughly entertaining. Wow, I just absolutely loved her in this. We had Selma Hayek, who plays Nurse Rosa. She delivers one of the most funniest lines in the film, saying that her sick days were for when she's actually not feeling sick. I couldn't help but laugh my head off when I heard that line. Bebe Neuwirth was delightful as Principal Valerie Drake, and I wish we had more time with her on screen, because she just has this presence that I just love, and I wanted to see more of her, definitely. Usher was in this film. This was Usher's first film debut, but it wasn't his first acting debut. He was actually in a lot of television long before this. Many people were also disappointed that Usher had such a small supporting role in the film when he was actually featured on many of the posters and TV spots at the time. And it was the marketer's way of trying to use his growing fame to get more teens in theaters. The best part of the film. There are so many memorable scenes for me, like the scat test. Even though there was a bit of wonkiness about the scene, I still loved it, and it stands out to me as one of those really high-tension moments when the film goes into overdrive, and you're like, oh my god, what's next? It's really pretty exciting and fun. And I really love Mary Beth's big reveal as the alien queen, and it just pretty much everything leading up to her demise at the end is just an amazing last quarter. Now the ending. The ending was pretty satisfying. What really sums it up is that during the final fight scene when Casey is running through the football locker room, there's a banner that says, "The will to win comes from within," referring to the alien parasites living within the students. However, the victory over the aliens comes from Casey's inner strength as a survivor prevailing. And it's actually interesting because he's been really practicing for this all his life, really. So, I don't know, it turns him into the hero at the end. I really like that. And also channeling The Breakfast Club, the film fast forwards about a month later, showing what became of the schoolmates and their transformations guiding them into an eventual adulthood. Now the wish list. So the wish list is that there weren't so many continuity issues in the film. There's a lot of them, and the biggest area is basically who needs water and who didn't. Because we never see Mary Beth or Delilah drink water, but everyone else is like guzzling it down. So there was a bit of inconsistency there. And then we have the pen vial of scat, and when it's inserted into Professor Furlong's eye, he's out cold and possibly dead. It looks like he dies, and he gets regenerated later, but he looks like he's out of it for a while. But when Delilah takes it, it basically just reveals the parasite, but she's completely fine. And I just wish that that particular piece of it was a little bit more consistent. Now the enjoyment. Watching this film is like watching a film that's made by people who really love movies. And you can see lots of great details in the film. And callbacks to Terminator 2 Judgment Day in particular. Lots and lots of them. We get the strongest T2 vibes from the actor Robert Patrick, who played the T-1000 Terminator in T2. And in this film, one of the faculty is named Edward Furlong, which is the name of the actor who played John Connor in T2. Also, there's one scene that kind of mimics a chase scene in T2 when the coach is chasing the principal down the hall. It kind of has that T2 vibe. And all of these little nods are so cute, and they really put a little smile on my face since that's one of my favorite movies. Within the film, you can see that the filmmakers were inspired by many science fiction classics. Within the dialogue, they mention Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They also mention the book The Puppet Masters, which also had a parasite invasion. It's almost marketed as a horror film, but in my opinion, it's absolutely not. It has a few jump scares and a few gory scenes, but no truly horrifying moments. So it's more like a sci-fi thriller. And I think that's why it appeals to me so much. The story doesn't begin at the very beginning of what happens, but somewhere at the start of what happens at the school. And I've always wondered, what led up to the events of the alien arriving in the school. Let's open up that big can of worms. But I understand that that particular part couldn't actually be included in this film to keep the story uncluttered. But I've always wondered. So, you know, I wouldn't exactly mind a prequel for this film. If it ever came out, I'd definitely go check it out. And when Mary Beth talks about her world of oceans, and it just made me kind of gasp. I'm like, I want to see that world. So as we do know is that the aliens thrived in water, and that's why I've always wondered why the alien queen didn't begin her takeover in the oceans on Earth before invading land, since the oceans were her natural habitat. And there's so many reasons why you can think of why she chose land. You know, maybe humans were interesting to her, that she felt like humans were more fascinating of a species and more intellectual, and she'd get more out of the invasion. I guess in that particular version of this film, the humans wouldn't be able to win. I mean, it would pretty much be a no contest situation. So I guess that's why I don't write for Hollywood. I would make it so the bad guys win. That's terrible. But or at least I would set up a really good challenge for the humans to endure. One thing that I noticed about this film that kind of stuck with me later are the many monologues geared toward tempting loners to be a part of the collective. It's the deeper layer into the story that leaves the viewer quite contemplative by the end of the film. I think that although we all want to be accepted, loved, and appreciated, we don't want to sacrifice our humanity or individuality for it. Films like this shows you the horror of that threat, you know, as our little angsty teens fight to remain true to themselves in a way and not transform into a drone. It's a fear that we all have, to lose our emotional humanity and the value of our memories and what that means to us. The way that we behave is a unique broadcast of our hearts and our minds. And that's why I love films like these, with brilliant cinematics, fun practical effects, light-hearted dialogue, and great pacing. It's one of my favorite horror movies. My rating is an 8.6. Well, that sums up my review. I hoped you liked it. This is Retro Nerd Girl signing off. Take care, movie lovers. I'm off to my next review.